Welcome. I wanted to spend a few extra minutes talking specifically about religious organizations and their eligibility for the employee retention tax credit. We get this question a lot, and there's many religious organizations out there that are wondering if they're eligible for this great program. So you have a slide here, and I'm going to walk through this over the next couple minutes to highlight how religious organizations can take advantage of this great program, the Employee Retention Tax Credit. Now, the recent stimulus packages, the laws, and even IRS guidelines and notices have made it clear that tax-exempt organizations are eligible. And for the purpose of ERTC, they've been deemed to engage in a trade or business similar to any for-profit organization. So that's first and foremost, tax-exempt organizations are eligible. Next, we go into a specific language in terms of what a government order means for the purpose of the Employee Retention Tax Credit. And it outlines, quote unquote, that group meetings for commercial, social, religious, or other purposes. So if a government order, whether it's state, whether it's local, whether it's county, city, whatever it may be, that limits group meetings, including religious meetings, that order qualifies a religious organization for employee retention tax credit. Well, you may be asking, well, that doesn't apply because in my state, religious services were deemed essential. It was, Florida, New York, Michigan, several states out there made it clear that holding religious services were an essential activity and were exempt from any government order limiting or canceling the ability for them to meet. And we'll address this in a later point. But even with that designation that a religious service is essential, limited capacity was also part of those orders. So while you were allowed to meet for a religious service, you were not allowed to meet at 100% capacity in your organization, in your religious institution. Now, the second part of this is that if you are in a state where a religious service was not considered essential, you are still eligible under what's called a partial suspension of operations, which goes back to having limited capacity. So here's really the nuts and bolts of it. There's two scenarios in which a religious organization is going to be eligible for the employee retention tax credit. The first scenario is a religious organization in a state where services were considered not essential. Because they were considered not essential, that religious organization is going to be eligible for the tax credit under the government order clause. Because there's a government order limiting religious meetings, you are eligible if you're in a state where religious services were considered not essential. The second scenario is if you are in a state where religious services were allowed and were considered an essential activity, you are still eligible for the employee retention tax credit because you are under the partial suspension clause, meaning that you are not able to conduct your religious service at 100% capacity. So if you are in a religious organization that paid wages during this time and meet all of the other requirements for the program, you are going to be eligible for this program, this employee retention tax credit, based on one of those two scenarios. So I recommend that you take a closer look at what we're doing to help religious organizations with this tax credit. There's certainly other videos that you can look at that highlight the program and all of the other components of this. But this could mean up to $33,000 per employee back to your organization. So thank you for listening, and we look forward to possibly helping you with this program and putting more money back into your organization. Thank you.